Behind those mountains, all the system was hidden. After all of those years of that fight with that harmful gas and just one complex solution. That was the reason of the newborn babies to know the world as we know it. I thought while passing by the high mountains near that 19 base camp in our car. It was 1847 EUR or after the end of the use of robots. My automatic car driver, which I call Richard, had just been updated for the long travel voyages. We were going to the fourth base camp, which was located in another kingdom or what ancient people called Crontis or something like that. We had to start our travel in the 21st base camp, which was our base camp and permanent home. Daddy, which is 19 base camp's main task? Asked Helen, my daughter. They are in charge of keeping the software of the automatic car drivers working. I had to remember a history lesson I took in my base camp. So informatic are their main skill, isn't it? Yes, I answered. I was an aeronautical engineer that had worked for 10 years in the hydraulic engines for elite and ecological flying cars. My working place was in the 21st base camp, but I had to travel a lot to the 4th base camp because I need to test this fuel with some different type of engines. I always traveled with my daughter, which was 13 years old. She is the cause for me to live. She's the figure of his mom. My wife had her daughter when I was 17 years old, but in the labor she died. For that reason, I always take a lot of care, and I don't want to be a second without her. Our trip didn't take too much time because of the innovative system of the automatic drivers. We had traveled from the 21st to the 4th base camp in about 2.5 hours. I turned on my computer and made a calculus to know how long it would take if we had traveled by the normal car system, which was no longer used. Before the invention of automatic car drivers, robots were used in every situation, but their help were no longer used after some robots were with some software failure. For example, some were incredibly attracted to water because instead of writing the code of aquatic phobia, they wrote aquaphilia. This code mistake led them to feel an abnormal love to water. In the fourth base camp, we were expecting to see very light and fast flying cars, but we found out that they were working in an e-board that was powered by hydrogen and dry ice. This was a very whimsical experiment because they didn't really need that. I was sent to that base camp by my boss, which asked me to help in a aerodynamic project of the flying cars. When we were working in some problems the wings had, the 25 base camp, which was the military center, called us and told us about a problem some robots had caused in the automatic car driver center. In the lab, an anxiety feeling started to be noticed. Since the center was the complex solution, I just had talked about it with my daughter. This called us to rebuild an airplane with some special characteristics, such as having an electric weapon which make robots explode. The automatic driver system had failed 3 days ago, so we couldn't travel to the other base camps for some engines we were missing. So we had to use a truck to bring them from the 7th base camp. When we brought the missing pieces, they had already put the guns, so the airplane was only missing the 4 engines. After they were placed and ready to work, we tried if they worked, so we went to the later airport located in the base camp. Successfully took off, so it had some accurate tests, which consisted in shooting at some broken robots. The airplane was successfully completed all of its tasks, so then it landed. We did some arrangements in the artillery room. which controlled the attack and defense system of the whole aircraft. Also, we fixed some mistakes that the hydraulic system had, especially in the landing gear. Is when I was asked to go to the principal's office for an urgent meeting. When I reached to his office, he was waiting for me with some papers and instructions. Then he told me that I had to pilot the airplane in the mission because the pilot had an accident in the training session. At first, I thought I won't do it because of Helen, which was going to stay alone here while I was in a combat. Then I had to agree because I had to protect the center, because it was the reason of human being to exist. I was given the specific instructions I needed. The advantage was that I knew how to fly an airplane. After took off, I felt proud of myself, but I still had to fly to the high mountains. When we reached them, the co-pilot announced the soldiers that they must jump now, so they can land in the planned area. The commander of the ground attack group announced by the radio that they were in position, waiting for the artillery controller to destroy some robots that were keeping the entrance. When they were neutralized, the group entered to the main block. Then is when I saw an anti-aircraft gun coming out of the rooftop. Instantly, it started to fire at us. I was in shock and barely announced the ground group and the artillery controller that they were shooting at us. We were hit by a projectile which impacted in our right flap. The airplane instantly balanced to the left, so I resolved to increase the right engine power and decrease a little bit the power of the left one. The artillery control informed me that he was searching for the robot that was controlling the anti-aircraft gun, but he couldn't find it. Then the ground leader told us that they had killed the robot that was controlling the aircraft gun. A big explosion had occurred in the right part of the main block, where the group was. I called the leader so many times that I lost the number of times I did it, and in none of them I got an answer. When I was calling the principal to let him know of what was happening, I received a call from the leader's radio. I could only hear cheers and celebrations. I was confused. I have thought they were dead. But then is when I asked what had happened. They told me that a suicide robot which carried a bomb was shot and it had exploded, and it had damaged all of the lifting robots. I had to land in an improvised airfield in the 19th base camp. Then we pick up some informatic engineers so they can fix the hardware and software of the center. When we arrived at the center, we left the engineers there, and we picked up the soldiers that had just finished cleaning up the robots that were dead, and they had placed them in a 8 feet deep hole. We went back to the airplane in the improvised airfield. Then we organized all of the stuff so we could take off and go back to the fourth base camp. The journey to the camp didn't took so much time, so we were by there before the night. After some days, Helen, Richard, and me went home. When we were wishing to rest at home, and also I wanted to spend time with my beloved daughter, which had to go to school in a week. The robots didn't bother us again, so I had plenty of time to work in the special engines, which I finished after a month of this strange event.